You're listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. Hope you're well. The interview subject I have coming up for you, it's Daniel Connell from the Perth-based outfit Amberdown. Now, the reason for the chat with Dan is to promote the debut album from Amberdown. It's called 4 Years. It's a sterling affair. I encourage you to find it and get into it. So let's get into the conversation with Dan. Let's go. Hey mate, it's Andy Mackay-Smith calling for a chat. How you going?
Hey mate, how are you?
Oh, I'm not too bad,
You're
actually.
doing well.
Yeah, no, you're my first cab off the rank, it turns out, because the person before you didn't pick up, so it's always special to do the first one.
Oh, that's good. Beautiful.
What's been happening today, mate? You've been at work, that sort of thing?
Yeah, mate, it's been fucking 40, almost close to 40 degrees here, so struggling today, but, getting there. Finished now, so not too bad.
Yeah, I don't think it's been 40 degrees here. It certainly felt like it at times, but we've just got, mate, the bushfires are just saying a prayer every bloody morning that we don't get any,
Oh, yeah.
We're just surrounded by bush. We're in a semi-rural residential area. We're certainly not in the bush. We're surrounded by cane fields here on the northern Gold Coast, but mate, you can smell it every day. You just smell bushfire, from the eucalypts.
Shit.
We just had, like,
beautiful
you guys.
spot, though.
Oh, it's a stunning spot. We haven't had proper rain in I don't know. It's been something like 2 years. I'm talking about serious rain that
serious downpour.
Yeah. We had some on the weekend, but it's never enough, mate. When you have when it's so dry, so the lawn's just brown and everything else is brown. But
yeah.
What do you do, mate? So, but look, I've got to tell you, I do enjoy this album of yours here, 4 years. Okay.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
And I want you to take this as a compliment because at first I really had to work hard to figure out what you guys were doing. So at first, the first track, I listened to everything in the car, you see, so I'm not familiar with the song titles, but the first cut reminded me of a more melodic version of Refused, and I love Refused, right? But then as the album started going, and I've listened to it a dozen times or so, I started hearing the Butterfly Effect. Then I started to hear Radio Hard.
Yeah, I've been told that.
Yeah, it's definitely there. Yeah, but then I started to hear the radio hard rock of Seether and 3 Days Grace, and then there was even Panic at the Bloody Disco I picked up this afternoon. I can't remember the name of the track. It was there. And so, mate, they're all good bands. I mean, some of them aren't my thing, but they're all good bands who know what they're doing, quality musicians, that sort of thing. And so it alludes to something broader, though, that there is plenty across 4 years to keep fans of hard rock, heavy metal, even just straight up rock and roll entertained. So, I mean, do you agree with some or any of what I've said? And how would you describe your music to the uninitiated?
Jeez, right. Well, okay. To be honest, yeah, we kind of struggled to put a sort of a genre or a style on what we do, because we do so much of we take sort of everything from every other genre and every other sort of, I don't know, we tend to do a bit of everything, and trying to sort of put us into a genre or a style is hard to do. I think we're kind of like, to call it like aggressive hard rock, I guess.
Sure, yep. Definitely hear that, yeah.
Yeah, but we're all into different bands, so that's probably why it comes across like that. I'm into a lot of sort of 90s grunge and punk and stuff, as well as touches of metal and even like folk and stuff I'm into as well. So and a lot of the other guys are sort of more into the metal stuff. So I guess that's probably why you'll sort of hear a mixture of metal with sort of hooks and grunge together.
Yeah, it's definitely there. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. So who do you write the music and give it to the rest of the guys? You're the singer, right? I think I'm right in saying that. So you play singer,
yeah.
And you sing and play the guitars. So do you write the music yourself and then give it to the other guys in a Dropbox situation, or how does it work?
Yeah, that happens a lot of the time. So I like to sort of write the chorus or the melody of the chorus first with vocals, and then I sort of work backwards and forwards to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll normally come up with an idea in the chorus or something close to the chorus, maybe like a bridge or something, and then I'll work backwards and forwards of that and bring it to the band, and then they all sort of add their flair to it. That's usually what we kind of do.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Like in the middle of the night, or as soon as I wake up in the morning, I might get this hook in my head, and I'll quickly put it down on the phone with your little voice recorder, and then then I'll grab a guitar later on and sort of write a
I get
few
you.
chords and that kind of thing, and then work around it that way, because I feel like sometimes working from the start, or from something that isn't like where the hook sits, is a bit harder to do, because you have to sort of, I don't know, that's just how I do it anyway. I always find it's better to write choruses first and work around.
Works for you, yeah. I understand that. Yeah, actually, it's funny. When I was writing music, I did the same thing. Write the chorus, get the strongest bit up there. The most memorable bit always becomes the chorus, and then you just figure out what you do around it just to support the chorus.
That's right. Yeah, that's kind of how I write. So I reckon that's the best way to do it, because you'll always hear a random hook or a melody in your head, and you think, oh, I better put that down, and then things just sort of evolve around that.
Indeed, they do. Yeah, I understand completely where you're coming from, and I can actually hear that now that you've mentioned it. And the other thing too, mate, is the guitar sound. So the sound that you've captured from the guitars is absolutely killer on this album. So it seems to me, and if I didn't know better, I'd say a heap of time has gone into ensuring that there's a balance on the recording. So who did you record it with, and how did you pull that stellar guitar sound?
We actually recorded it ourselves.
Cool.
So the production was basically all us. We did go somewhere else. We went to Matt Tippelman, who does like Voyager and a few other bands like that, for the mixing process for about, I think, 7 of the songs, and then we mixed the other sort of 4 or 5 songs, just because we didn't have much time to mix it at the time. One of our guys was working away for the year, and another one of the guys was in hospital, and I had a stint in hospital too, so we were kind of
You're in the wars, mate.
Yeah, so we got him to do a lot of the mixing, but yeah, we recorded it and produced it ourselves. We did a lot of that at Revolver Studios, so we just hired that place out and did it ourselves, and yeah, it did take the biggest portion of the time probably was actually spent getting the sound miking and and fiddling with the knobs and stuff and getting tones, because I mean it's just much easier to get it sounding good first and then sort of dealing with everything later. Yeah. It's that classic, you can't polish a turd type thing.
Absolutely.
So we definitely worked on it. Worked on it for a long time. Got all the drum sounds and the guitar tones exactly how we wanted them, and then we moved the studio into my house, into a little bedroom where I did probably half the guitars and all the vocals there, because we didn't want to keep paying at Revolver, so we thought, okay, we'll have to move it into my house. But my house I got a long sort of living area, so it was cool miking it up in that room. It had like a nice natural reverb in there and everything, so it was good.
It's a noisy album, but it never sounds messy, and that's bloody hard to achieve with the sort of music that you're doing. You know what I mean? Like,
I know exactly what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, that was the thing when I first listened to it, because I always I make a point of listening to albums, because I get sent so many over the iPhone speakers, and they're not the best speakers in the world, of course, they can never be. But I can always tell that a band has got it's not about the production, to your point, you cannot polish a turd, you can't do it, but it's the way everything's been recorded and getting that balance right. And I could really hear that you got the mics right, to your point there, that you didn't let the guitars overpower everything and let the bass sort of just sit to the background. I can actually hear everything. And that's I use Apple AirPods, because I never want to get too used to really good headphones, because then it changes your listening experience and everything else just sounds piss weak. So
yeah,
you know
I've
what I
noticed
mean?
that as well, with every different speaker of every different type, and the tiniest little differences make such a huge difference, really. Yeah, when listening to it. Yeah, we tried to get as clear and as tight as we could, but still holding on to sort of a touch of that sort of grungy, sort of messy.
Well, you've done that.
Attitude. Yeah, that's kind of the way we did. And like you were saying earlier, with the album, we purposely wrote it so that you would not really enjoy it on the first run through. It's one of those ones you have to sort of give a few runs before you get what's actually going on, and that's what I purposely did when writing it, because our prior sort of EPs and singles had a lot more hooks and a lot more instant sort of, oh yeah, I can enjoy this on the first listen type of music. But I purposely wrote songs on this album that were not that fashion. You have to give it a few runs, because I feel like those are the albums that most people, remember, and that they will have better replay value in the long run.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, I'm 41, and I remember buying Weezer's Pinkerton when it first came out and thought it was garbage. And then I listened to it. I forced myself to listen to it for about half a dozen times, and then I thought I might just be listening to the best album that I've ever heard. That was back then, and I've kind of still got the same view now,
Wow.
3 or 4 years
There you
later,
go.
what have you. And that album really forced me to work for it. And are you mates with Moana over there in Perth? The band with the
Yeah.
her album's a lot like that as well. Like the first couple of times, to be honest with you, I've got to talk to her later on tonight, but I thought it was garbage, to be honest with you, the first time I heard it. I honestly,
I won't say anything.
Oh no, I'm going to tell her tonight. I'm going to redeem myself by saying I love it now. But it was one of those albums that I thought, this is the Moana album. It was recorded okay, but holy shit, the riffs are simple, and the drum cadences that they've chosen to use to match the riffs are way too simple again, and it cruels what I felt at the time is the majesty of her voice. But now I understand what they're trying to do because I've spent some time listening to it. And I think that alludes to something broader, which is that in this day and age of Tidal, Spotify, Apple, iTunes Music, whatever the hell it's called these days, people aren't spending time with albums, of course. So this is a good question for you. Did you have that in mind? We've talked about the fact that you do... Yeah, you go.
Sorry. I was just going to say, that was exactly on my mind at the whole time we were doing the album. So, because I got Spotify too, and I know how the instant gratification you get from instant movies and instant music, and it makes it makes art and music not what's the word I would use. I don't know. It doesn't seem to have the appeal that it used to. I mean, people are doing, it used to be when I was a kid, you'd put a CD or a vinyl on and you sit and you wouldn't do anything else while you were listening to it, and you would just focus on listening to it.
Yes, I remember.
Now it's about, people got music on, they got TV on, they got, and they're instantly like, I don't like this, 10 seconds into it, next. And it's that instant gratification when it comes to art that really ruins it. So I thought, well, it's not going to make a difference anyway. And I'm going to make this album for people that are actually into music and will put the effort into sort of giving it a few spins and concentrating on
good on you,
what we're doing and enjoying it. And some people have gotten it. Like I've had a few people that I've talked to so far, radio, that have said the same thing as you, that didn't really hit them the first time, but they gave it a few more spins and they got it, and that's sort of what I was trying to do. And we don't care to be famous. Like we don't really, that's not our thing. We don't want to be Justin Bieber or something like that. We just want to sort of have people that can appreciate what we're doing and understand it. And you're not going to get everyone in the world doing that. You know what I mean? You're just going to get a select group of people that are, like people like yourself that enjoy music and would sit down and listen to an album and take it all in without, watching TV at the same time or reading a book at the same time or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a lot like that, man. Yeah, you're really on point there, and I can just to cement the point too. I love the way that you've made the album tracks lead into each other. So you've really got to listen to it all together to really pick that up. And it's, mate, and for those people who out there that are going to be listening to this who aren't musicians, it's such a hard thing to do for a band to agree on track order. So tell me, what was the thinking behind the track listing and then making sure that the tracks basically just they merge into each other so it's like one big long song?
Well, we wrote. So there's a medley in there. There's 3 songs that sync into each other: Casey Part 1, Casey Part 2, and Hole in the Floor.
Okay, gotcha.
And all three songs are linked. There's no gaps between them, but you can obviously change on the CD and that to the next one. Mm-hmm. And each song has a portion of the other song in every song. Mm-hmm. So if you listen to it carefully, you'll notice that that's how it works. So it's basically like a 9-minute, sort of 10-minute song. And we wanted to do something like that because we wanted to just. It was actually written, that song in 3 parts because it's a progression of a really bad relationship I had with someone who was extremely manipulating and violent and basically destroyed that portion of my life. So I needed to get that out in music and I guess in art, in some art form. But I couldn't do it in one song. It had to be 3 songs, and you'll notice when you listen to it, it's the progression of the relationship and my thoughts as it went through it. Mm-hmm. And that's basically what I decided to write, and that's why I linked them all together in that fashion. It was just something I needed to do. I couldn't just do it through one song, basically. Does that sort of answer your question? I think there was another part to that question.
No, it's fine. It's a good answer, man. Yeah, no, it's up to you how you answered it. You answered it well, you know. Yeah, and it's one of those things, isn't it? Bad relationships and bitter endings are, mate. They're great fodder for bloody writing songs, aren't they?
Yeah,
You know,
I mean that's the best way out for me to write is sort of angst, anger, and sadness. I'm not really one for writing in happiness and joy. It doesn't seem to come out as well. So.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
For me, I'm quite the opposite. I tend to sort of have to be writing about. I haven't written songs in a while, but man, I get into all sorts of music, and I'm a bassist and a guitarist, but I primarily write on the bass, and it ends up sounding like reggae and calypso music. A lot of my own stuff, and I don't even know where it comes from. It just does, and when I sort of try to write lyrics and stuff, they're not that introspective. They're quite poppy, and I'm thinking, Christ, should I? What the hell's going on here? I'm sort of pulling, you know, you're a songwriter, so you pull it from the ether, don't you? You're really just a vessel for it to throw through
right. I mean, I've written as well poppy songs and hooks and stuff, and they don't normally make the albums because the guys don't seem too keen on putting them in. But yeah, every now and then something like that will come out. And yes, you can't. Sometimes you can't, control what you write. It just sort of comes out, and sometimes you think, "Oh, that's too good to just not put on an album. It's too good to just let go just because it's not our style." So that's probably why when you listen to the album, you'll hear a variety of styles, because I don't like that idea that you have to stick to one style of writing. It's a stupid idea. I don't know where it came from. It keeps people pigeonholed into genres, and I'm not a fan of it. So
yeah, from the 60s, I've done some research into this. It's from back in the 60s, and the main form of revenue was from albums, of course, back then in the 60s and 70s. And record companies really tried to shoehorn bands under genre labels because that's what radio wanted, and certainly no songs longer than 3 minutes or 2.5 minutes or whatever it was. And and as a reaction to that, it was actually prog, unbelievably. That was like the punk, it was like the punk attitude behind prog. It was really weird, saying "fuck you, we're going to make 20-minute songs here," and people loved it. Pink Floyd and all of that sort of stuff just went gangbusters, and then the record industry went, "Oh, okay," but then it was already set. The die was cast for radio, so bands like Iron Maiden and Pink Floyd were never played on radio, but the fans loved them. But the radio was always into that poppy bullshit, the Monkees and all that rubbish. And I think that's where it comes from, man. And I'm with you. I think these days, though, 2019, with the amount of social media platforms that are out there and the ability to basically reach as many people as you want, depending on how much money you've got behind you. Let's face it, in terms of promotion, you can pretty much be all things to all people if you want to. There's no reason these days to sort of box yourself in. I think, especially if you're a creative type like you are.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think if you're going to write something, you should write what you want, not write what you think other people want, because we did a bit of that, 5-6 years ago, and it's just, it's not fun. It's not, what's the point? You're going to burn yourself out. So do what you love, and that's what I think.
So, did you have any other serious challenges that you had to overcome to get the album released, or did it just flow and happen?
Songwriting was actually quite easy. I mean, almost all the songs were written right after that relationship breakdown. It's 4 years. That's what the album's named after. Mm-hmm. So it was a 4-year relationship that just went totally horrible. It was a real bad breakup. And I was basically stuck in this relationship that I could not get out of for multiple reasons. So a lot of the songs were written right after that in my sort of depressive state, and they just came out really fast. I think we wrote about 5 or 6 songs in the space of, in the space of like 2 or 3 weeks, sort of thing. And the rest were sort of songs we've been playing around with for a while that have just been sitting in the background that we decided to put down.
Yeah, you allude to something there, and you've mentioned it a couple of times, so I'll go there with it. But I just do not feel that in this day and age, mental health in particular, is considered. You understand what I'm saying? And I mean, you've mentioned that you're with a violent partner, and we're in the era of Me Too, and what's the other word that's called these days? And we've just seen Tracy Spicer's disaster. I don't know whether you've been following that, but men's health is just really sort of get swept under the rug, and it sounds like...
It does, yeah. I mean, like most people, when I was telling people, I was getting physically beaten. I mean, I couldn't. I'm a fairly sort of big bloke, and if I'm not the kind of guy who would put my hands on anyone, especially a woman.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So I just basically had to take it, and I think it was not until one of my friends actually saw what was going on that actually he had to call the police.
Jesus, yeah.
But yeah, it was, and I was basically like not scared of the violence, but scared, just stuck. You know what I mean? In something that
I do. Yeah. I understand. Yeah. I think it's
embarrassing to admit sometimes, I guess, because of the stigma when it comes to this sort of stuff. But I'm not really. I've lost that shame. I'm not really ashamed to admit it anymore. It's what happened, and I moved on.
Well, the thing is, mate, if the roles were reversed, and that would never happen, but just an alternative dimension, if they were, you'd be in prison. Or
that's exactly what the guy who called the police on her, who's my best mate, is exactly what he said. He said if the roles were reversed and you were doing what she did to you, and what I'd seen in that day, and it was one of just many times. Yeah, I'd be in jail, 100%.
Yeah, it's a very strange world we're living in these days, mate. Through identity politics and the like, where if you're a fella these days, you're basically, whatever happens to you, deal with it, fucker. This sort of thing, and I think it's just wrong.
That's right, move on.
And look,
that's what a lot of the songs actually on the album are about. Identity politics, like Abandon, and a few other songs have that in them because of that relationship. But go on, sorry, I've cut you off.
No, it's just I've got 2 daughters, right? So I've technically got no skin in the game on that front outside of looking after myself. But I'm not in a violent relationship. I'm married. I've been married for 10 years, but I hear things regularly enough, mate. I've got to tell you, from people such as yourself, and it's very disappointing, mate, from the perspective that society just expects you to just deal with shit. And where you're fortunate is you've got this wonderful outlet and this great gift of being able to craft music, so that probably helps, but it doesn't change the fact that you've been in a very abusive relationship, and it took a lot of courage, no doubt, to get out of it and to make that call, because you were probably just trying to keep the peace by staying in it, but people don't understand that.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's you can't get out because of the how deep you really are, but you want to so badly that it's pretty tough. And I developed really some pretty shit problems from I developed like an insomnia issue, so I only get like an hour or 2 of sleep a night these days because of
shit. Yeah.
She's not sort of stemming from that problem, but like there's certain things that I just got out of it that just were pretty bad.
Yeah, believe me, I'm not the advice guy, mate. We've got to lead our own lives and follow our own paths. But have you tried CBD oil?
I have actually. Yeah.
Did it help?
I am a user of such things on occasion.
Nothing wrong with that.
The oil and others, yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Because of the effects on anxiety, it's one of the only things that really actually helps.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic stuff. I totally, I don't know why it's illegal. It's stupid.
Oh, likewise.
You can put me on that.
Mate, you can get me talking for hours about that and psychedelics and even MDMA. These have clinical uses that have been demonstrated, academically supported. It is just, I don't know, mate. In this day and age, mate, I speak to plenty of people that are religious that support its legalization. So people go, the religious people and the family first people, they don't give a shit. Certainly the people that I've spoken to, so God knows why we aren't sort of getting on board. My theory, and I don't know this for a fact, but I'm not into conspiracy theories at all, as long-time listeners of the show will understand, but Big Pharma, I think, have had a lot to say about why they're not being made legal.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there is a lot to do with it. With those guys, I think there's a lot of money
it's
being
massive,
made.
Yeah, massive amounts being made on antidepressants, and they don't fucking work. They don't work long term, whereas it's academic. Look, without going into any of the detail right now, I encourage any of the listeners to go there and deep dive on this stuff there. But whether you're talking about magic mushrooms, psychedelics, LSD, peyote, ayahuasca, even MDMA. MDMA was a clinical thing for people who were depressed back in the day, back in the 20s or 30s. These things are there for people. They're not even there for people who are going through this necessarily. They're for people who are going through tough times psychologically. They're for everybody. There's no reason to deny things that grow on the bloody ground. It's just dumb.
It's a bit silly, isn't it? Yeah, I got a friend actually who he's been on antidepressants on and off for a long time, but he says the only thing that really helps him out is every now and then he'll have MDMA, and then for the next sort of 3 months he's
That's
fine.
Right. That's so true.
And for me, that's not like that for me. I have THC as my anxiety reducer.
It works.
But he can't really use that on his terms. Doesn't work as well for him as it does for me. So we're all different in that aspect. But you're right. I think it's really helpful, and I don't see, apart from pharmaceutical reasons, why we have to sort of be told it's wrong to use it. It's stupid.
Mate, we could talk for hours about this, and I'm going to have to wrap things up, which is a real shame. It's a real shame, man, because I want to keep talking about it, believe me, but I've got another chat at 8 p.m. my time here, which is in 5 minutes. But before I let you go, for the listeners out there who really want to hear your music, because you've given so much great insight, not just about the music, but about you as a person, man, so people are going to be interested. Tell them, how do they contact you? How can they find your music?
Okay. So Spotify, iTunes, Bandcamp, all those websites, we're on there. Our album's up on there, and some older stuff too. Where else? I mean, we have Instagram, Facebook, Amberdown Music. You'll find our Facebook and Instagram. And it's one word, Amberdown, one word. So Spotify, Amberdown, will be there.
Yeah, it's a killer album. For anybody listening, man, this is an album. It does take a few listens, but once you get it, you get it. Just quickly, have you got a vinyl or cassette coming out with the album?
We have CDs, so they are. You can order them on, I think, through Bandcamp, or just message us through our Facebook. And there will be vinyl at some point soon, because we're massive fans of vinyl. So
yeah, please do that. This is music that really lends itself to the true music fan, and true music fans love vinyl. As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, as I say, mate, I had a feeling it might be like this tonight, but mate, I only get I'm at uni and I'm working these days, and got kids too, as I mentioned before, mate. So it's I've got to sort of do these things in half-an-hour blocks. Otherwise, I just on 1 or 2 nights. Otherwise, I just don't get to them, to be honest with you. But man, I feel like we could have talked for hours about these sort of subjects. So I'm sorry to cut it short, because I certainly had more questions to ask about the music.
Well, we'll be recording again in January, so we'll have a new album out sort of end of next year. So I'm sure we'll talk again.
I hope so. I really hope so, man. Yeah.
And let you know when we're in Queensland.
That'd be killer, man. Yeah, Lee's pretty good at hitting me up and letting me know that bands from Perth, because I love the bands from Perth, man. It's my favourite city for music in Australia. The best stuff. I mean, you guys. There's Moana. There's just so many great.
There are some really good bands coming soon. Like a lot of new bands that have just popped their heads up in Perth recently. That are really. I mean, Perth is starting to become a really good hub for music.
Great.
So keep your eyes open.
Yeah, I will do, mate. So what I'll do from here, mate, if you're cool with everything that was spoken about, I certainly am.
No worries.
I'll just post it on my Facebook page and link the band in. Like put you guys in, saying that I've had a chat to yourself from this band, and mate, if you want to share away, go for it. No worries.
Yeah, we'll do. Thanks heaps. I really appreciate it. It was a good chat.
Likewise, mate. No worries, brother. All the best with everything, eh?
Thanks, mate. Yep. Take it easy.
No
Cheers.
worries. Gotcha. You've been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. That interview subject was Daniel Connell from the Perth-based outfit Amberdown. Thanks so much for listening.